friends and enemies that give us money. The best kind of friends and enemies. Welcome. It's another Patreon episode of Perhaps It's You.
We're
I'm
back.
Liz.
I'm Samantha.
Yeah, that's Samantha, by the way. And we're here to talk about the Unsolved Mysteries reboot that is now streaming on Netflix. And you've probably watched this a while ago, and maybe you have a little bit forgot what happened. But don't worry, we're going to recap it for you.
Okay, did you see they announced the date for the next 6 episodes?
Yes, October 19th, my brother's birthday.
So are we going to be doing this for like the next year?
Okay, well, that's the thing. It doesn't come out till the 19th. Okay, so for the August episode, obviously, we're going to do the next 2 episodes. We're doing 3 and 4 today. We'll do 5 and 6 for August. I mean, for September. Shit. I don't even know what month it is, everyone.
So this is August. We'll do September.
We're doing August right now. That's what I mean. We're doing August right now. We'll do September for the last 2 that are currently out. So that's the Berkshire's UFO and whatever that last one is. But then, another round comes in October. I don't know. Maybe we should do something else for October and then start in November.
We might have to, just depending on when we get around to recording October's episodes, we might have to do something in between before we do the new episodes.
You know what I have been wanting to do is I want to do the first episode of Riverdale.
Oh, okay. Let's do it.
I think that would be I've been rewatching Riverdale while working on a Riverdale puzzle. So nice. I've been thinking, that would be like a more like lighthearted.
Yeah.
Because these 2 episodes are sad.
These ones are arguably the sad.
Particularly the one that Samantha's going to be talking about. I was like, I don't want to rewatch this. It's kind of brutal.
Yeah.
So it would be nice to do something that was like not only just fiction, but like very fiction. Is maybe a little break from
a palate cleanser.
This darker content we're doing for the Patreon. I think I go first, right?
You do.
Okay, so I have episode 3, which is called House of Terror. This is the one that takes place in France. So we open up on a French home, and this is not. I feel like this is important. If you probably should watch this first before listening to us talk about it. But if you haven't watched it, I think it's important to know this isn't like a single family home. I guess that's more like what we would consider a townhouse. Like it's part of a building that's like attached, right?
Right, like maybe a condo, sort of, or
yeah. I guess we would call it.
Compare it to.
Yeah. I can't really think of like a similar structure in the United States that I'm aware of, but So anyway, so their home is just like it's very close to. It's literally connected to other houses. So I think that's important to realize. So we open up on that, and the shutters of this house are all closed, which is arousing suspicion of the friends and neighbors. And we hear from one friend who just says they seemed like a normal family, which we know is ominous because obviously we wouldn't be watching this if everything was fine.
Obviously, this is called House of Terror, and it opens on a house that's shuttered. Like nothing good has happened in this house.
It's probably fine. They're just like out at the market buying French bread, So this takes okay. Another thing I want to apologize right now is that I'm going to pronounce a lot of this stuff wrong, and I'm sorry. And yes, I know that I took years of French in school, but guess what? I didn't do a good job. So I was never good at pronunciation, as you may be aware of from years of listening to this podcast. So this takes place in Nantes, France, which is a large city on the west of France by the Atlantic coast. And it's explained to us that in the middle of a city is a residential neighborhood that's like upper middle class, and that's where this family lived. It's described as a fairly peaceful city, and that no one saw this mystery coming. And we now know.
Not.
Yeah, because then you fucking should have done something. But anyway, nobody saw this coming. It was a big surprise. So we learned that the house we saw is being referred to as a house of horror, a house of terror in like tabloids and stuff. And we see some news footage of people leaving like flowers and notes on the door and like other memorials in front of the house. So we're first hearing from their neighbor, Estelle, who lived a couple doors down, and she met the family because she does alterations. So she had done some sewing for them, and she also ironed their shirts. But she was also just like friends of the family. So then we learn about the family that lived in the house. So we have the mom, Agnes, who worked in a Catholic school. Then we have the dad, who's literally a count, and his name is Xavier Dupont de Leguines, maybe something like
Good.
that.
It's close enough. It's better than
And
I would have done.
Leguines? I don't know, something like that. Anyway, he is supposedly a successful businessman, and they have 4 children. So the oldest is Arthur. He was 20, and he went to Catholic college. The next one is Tomas. He's 18. He's shy, and he was studying music. The next one is their daughter, Anne. She was 16. She was a catalog model in addition to being a student at a private school. And then their youngest is Benoit, who is 13 years old and was an aspiring drummer. So we learned that the suspicion started on April 11th of 2011 when their friend Estelle noticed that the house is all closed up. So what this really just means is that they had closed the shutters on all of their windows, which apparently they didn't do even like when they were on vacation or whatever. And she thinks that's odd, and she goes to look at the front door and notices that it has this note that says that like not to deliver mail.
Very suspicious.
Yeah. So she calls the police. The police come to check on the house, and I don't know, surprise, surprise, I don't know a lot about the French legal system, but they obviously don't have the same warrant requirements that we do, because that was enough to like be able to go into the house. So they call a locksmith that opens the door. So the police just like take a quick look around. Everything seems in place. The only thing that they notice is that sheets have been removed from some of the beds, but I mean, that's not really suspicious in and of itself. Everything looks orderly. So they decide that the family has left voluntarily and there's nothing to recommend starting a police investigation. At this point, okay, so I think they had 2, this isn't entirely clear. I think they had 2 cars. Maybe both the husband and the wife had their own vehicle, but only one vehicle is gone. And Estelle points out that it would be impossible for all of them to leave in one car, because you're talking about 6 people. They had 2 large dogs, and also they would need like some luggage. So there's no way.
The car was pretty small, right? The one that was missing was pretty small. I forget what kind of car it was, but it wasn't like a SUV.
Yeah, it's a European car. Like it's a small sedan. It's like, yeah, maybe you could fit 6 people, 2 dogs, and luggage in like some American SUV, but not when whatever they're driving around like urban France. So that is happening on the 11th. But from like the 11th to the 14th, these 8-page letters start to arrive to friends and family. And it's they're kind of strange. They're written by Xavier, and they're claiming that that he was recruited by the USDA to infiltrate an international drug ring, and that the family needs to change their identities, and they're not going to have contact for anyone for a while.
This is
and
wild.
So yeah, and it's. I also have no idea like why that letter would need to be that long, but we hear from Xavier's longtime friend Bruno that says it was clearly written by Xavier. Like it was just like in his voice, and as he read the letter, he could like hear Xavier reading it, and that he had actually known him since they were 16. They had been neighbors. They had like grown up together. And he goes on to explain that Xavier's family, so Xavier's originally from Versailles, and his family is like descended from nobility. So his dad was a count, and it's like he has like a very prestigious like family line, and that was something that was super important to him. He met Agnes in the 80s when he was 20 and Agnes was 16 or 17. And he was in love with her, but he felt like he was like too young to be tied down. So he goes on this like year of traveling. And when he comes back to Versailles, he finds out that Agnes is pregnant with another man's child. And he decides that he loves her and is going to marry her. And this apparently caused like a bit of a scandal in Versailles at the time. It was like, oh, we don't do this. But Bruno thought that was like very commendable that he loved Agnes and was willing to be with her. So this kind of leads us into the fact that the reason the police keep pursuing this is because Agnes's family, who I assume is also like somewhat affluent, like won't let this go. So They're calling the police saying there's no way Agnes just fucking left the country with her 4 children and 2 dogs and didn't get in contact with any of us to tell us what was going on. That she just ripped her children out of school. Like this is a woman who taught like a Bible study group and went to mass every Sunday. She's like from a very traditional, like, I don't know, like quiet, boring family. She's not like living this whirlwind life where we're like, oh, we never know where she is, right? Like they
It
had
turns out she's a spy.
yeah, like they had like routines and a schedule, and she was working at a school and taking care of her children and not doing secret missions for the Americans. So essentially they just don't believe the letter, and they keep bugging the police to like look into it more. So the police go back to check on the house
So many times.
So it's like April 13th and then April 15th. They notice that some photographs are missing from frames. Like the frames are still on the wall, but the photographs have been removed, as if someone like wants to take them with them. But that, in and of itself doesn't really mean anything. But Agnes's family is like, nope, we still haven't heard from her. Like, you need to keep this up. So they go back on the 18th, third visit, 19th, fourth visit, April 20th, fifth visit. It's not until the sixth visit on April 21st that someone thinks to look under their terrace. And if you haven't seen this, it's sort of like there's a concrete block out of the back door of their house, and there's a little bit of a gap between that concrete and the ground. It's not even like a balcony. It's just like there's a couple feet in between like the building structure and the earth. And so on that sixth visit, a cop is like, what's under here? And it looks like at first there was just like dog bowls and like maybe some dog bones. Like maybe that was a place their dogs hung out. But they were like, oh, let's like start digging. So if this cuts to the DA is making a statement to like at a press conference saying, we're aware of this suspicious disappearance. Like, we're looking into it. We do think it's kind of weird. And then he very dramatically gets a phone call.
This is like out of a movie.
It really is. He gets a phone call and then it's like, oh, we have to delay this for another time. Like, we're done here. And so, of course, the press know that something is up. And what that is that when the police were digging under the terrace, they found large plastic bags bound with duct tape. I mean, we wouldn't be talking about this if something horrible hadn't happened.
Right.
And this is the bodies of the family. They're found buried along with Catholic statues and rosaries, as if someone's trying to make like consecrated ground like you would have in I forget which is which. Like a cemetery. I think a cemetery is secular and a graveyard is with a church. Something like, I don't remember.
Oh,
anyway,
I've never heard the difference between those two. I didn't realize that there was a difference. Interesting.
I think so Soldiers and Pioneers Cemetery was like, which is a local cemetery that we've talked about before, was kind of novel in that it wasn't sacred ground, so that anyone could be buried there. So it's, if you had committed suicide, you couldn't be buried in hallowed ground, but you could have been buried in Soldiers and Pioneers, right?
Okay, I just Googled it, and I think you're right. Cemeteries refer to a large burial ground that are not affiliated with a church. A graveyard is on the grounds of a church property.
Okay, so it looks like whoever buried these bodies buried them with religious relics to try to make it like, I don't know, like more sacred ground, opposed to it's just literally being the gross dirt under this cement block. So you have one grave that has the mother Agnes and 3 of the children, as well as the 2 dogs. And then there is a separate grave that just has the second oldest son, Thomas. So there's this like brief speculation that maybe Xavier's body is somewhere else. You're smart. You know that that's not the case. You're not going, oh no, what happened to Xavier? Obviously, Xavier is the murderer. It's a family annihilation situation. So the police put out an international warrant for him with Interpol, which means that not only can he be arrested in France, but he can be arrested in like all the neighboring countries. Even though a lot of Xavier's friends have trouble believing he could be the killer because he was seen as a super nice guy and this like very involved father who loved his children. It was like, very, how people give fathers like a lot of credit for like very minimal attention. Yeah. It's totally one of those things. So it's like, no, he actually like paid attention to his children, and you're like, ooh, wow. There's also one of his friends makes this claim that it's physically impossible for Xavier to have dug these graves because the space under this terrace is very low and Xavier had a bad back. Because this guy's never heard of the word motivation before. Like, yeah, okay, maybe he wouldn't do that for fun. Maybe that really did hurt. But at this point, this guy's murdered his entire family. Like, I think he's willing to hurt his back. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I'm gonna need more evidence that it wasn't him or that he had help before I'm gonna believe that. Yeah, that's
Doesn't
just not.
everyone have a
That's not
bad
enough.
back? Like, I'm not impressed. Okay. So the autopsy reveals that the children had sleeping pills in their system, which suggests that they were drugged before being murdered, so they wouldn't be aware of it or they wouldn't be able to fight back. The mother, Agnes, didn't, but she used a sleep apnea machine, and you can tell from the machine that it was suddenly stopped at 3 a.m. So it's believed that she was the first victim, because she wasn't drugged, and then the other children would have been murdered, and that each victim had 2 bullets in their head from a 22 long rifle. Also, all of the victims were in their pajamas. What's strange is that no blood is found anywhere in the house. They don't find any trace blood evidence whatsoever, and that's part of the reason why those many times the cops came previously is that nothing looked wrong. Like, if they had never dug under that terrace, they never would have realized. Also, on the like trash bags the bodies are in, there aren't any fingerprints or DNA evidence, so it doesn't link it to Xavier or anyone else. And that's when his friend Bruno explains that because Xavier was the heir to this like noble family, that killing off his 3 sons seems kind of incomprehensible. That would be a really big deal because he's just killed off his like lineage to this title.
Yeah.
Okay. We now learn a little bit of backstory that sort of like explains the frame of mind that Xavier would have been in. And that is that in the 2000s, the family had tried moving to Florida.
Why?
I have no idea why you would be living a lavish life as a count in France. And then you would go, you know where we're going to live? Florida. But you know what? I'm sure I can't put myself in. It probably seems like very sunny and exotic, and you want fresh oranges. I don't know. So, but guess what? That didn't work out. And this had cost them like a great deal of their money. So from like 2000 on to 2011 when the murders take place, it's sort of this like downward spiral for Xavier as he's lost like a big chunk of his capital. He acts like he's this very successful businessman going around making all these deals, but really none of his businesses ever work out because I don't think he really knows what he's doing. So whatever money they had left from their like failed international move and then moving back, it's just like he's just throwing out money and not actually getting any while he's sending his kids off to these like fancy private schools, and they're still living this, like posh lifestyle.
Yep.
So 3 months before the murders, Xavier's father, the Count, died of a heart attack, and it was left to Xavier to go clean out his apartment. And the 2 things that Xavier was really interested in finding and going through all his dad's stuff was there's like a signet ring that Counts have that has like the family crest and motto on it. So I don't know. He wanted that. But I think more importantly, he wanted to know if there was any money left. But his father, I don't think he was fully aware, but his father had died in poverty. He had been like living in a rented apartment. He had been very sick and lonely and hadn't had really any money either. So I think that might have been like Xavier's hope that, oh, well, my dad dies, I'll like inherit his money and then everything's going to be fine. Except that his father also didn't have any money. So what he does inherit, though, is a 22 caliber long rifle.
Interesting.
So we get to like at the end where they're kind of being like, oh, well, maybe someone else is the killer. And I was like, really? This guy literally inherited the gun that killed these people from his dead dad.
Yeah.
That is also kind of the reason why he doesn't have money and is in this situation.
I think for most people, the mystery is not who killed these people. I think there's a different mystery.
Yeah, I have to agree. There is like, I was Googling earlier today because I knew we were recording to see if there was like, something else to bring in. And people's like alternate theories are really stupid. Like people think he really
That's too
was
bad.
working for the DEA. And I
Oh.
was like, no,
No,
bitch.
no, he wasn't.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's the worst lie I've ever heard. No. Or yeah, or that like someone else did it and blah, blah. And I was like, this really seems like a case where the simplest explanation is probably correct.
Yeah.
It makes tons of sense that it would be him. It's horrible, but it makes like logical sense, opposed to he was really in the DAA and the American government killed his children. Like, why? What? Okay. Anyway, so after inheriting this rifle, the murder weapon, he goes on to obtain a firearms license and then learns how to shoot it, and even would go to the shooting range with his sons, which is particularly morbid. And while he's at the shooting range, they remember him asking questions about how to use a silencer. And he did later buy one.
Okay.
Which is extremely suspicious activity. So part of the like mystery was like, oh, so he's in this house that's like sharing walls with other homes, like in this downtown area with lots of people. Like, why didn't anyone hear anything? Oh, gee, I wonder if he just happened to buy a silencer. All right, so the next mini mystery is, why is his son Thomas in a different grave from the rest of the family? And when the police are able to establish like a more of a timeline, that sort of becomes clear that he was killed at a different time. So for some reason, Thomas was home, but he needed to go back to his college like a couple nights before the murders take place. And his father's like, yeah, fine, whatever. So he's not there the night that his mother and siblings are killed, which would have been like Sunday night into Monday morning. On Tuesday, Xavier calls his son Tomas and says, oh, your mom's been in a horrible bicycle accident. Which, again, you're telling me this guy's not the killer? He literally
Lured his son back.
Lures his son back by claiming that his mom is in a coma and we don't know if she's going to come out or not. You need to come home. So Tomas comes home Tuesday night. I am very curious about this Tuesday night. So he comes home. His family is already fucking dead and buried under that terrace by this point. So he comes home. Only his father is there. I guess he thinks his mother is in the hospital and everybody else is at the hospital and they're going to go see her the next day.
But like, where are the siblings? Like, where does his father say the siblings are? That part
I guess visiting the mom at the hospital, but then why wouldn't he go?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm sure it's just some lie, but it is weird to think about him coming home and being like, hey, where is everybody? And don't we own 2 dogs? And the dad being like, yeah.
Where are the dogs?
Yeah. We'll worry about that in the morning. You sit down and have this nice cup of whatever, because he also gives him sleeping pills, right? So Tomas was texting with a friend of his last night, but those texts like go unanswered after midnight. So it seems like the sleeping pills take effect after midnight. He's murdered and then buried. I guess early Wednesday morning, late Tuesday night. There's some speculation that the dad had the most hesitation killing him, which this is totally speculation. I think it's kind of gross. But so his oldest son, Arthur, is like technically not his biological kid, right? Like that's the kid that he came back and found Agnes pregnant with. Mm-hmm. So if you care about that type of bullshit, Thomas is really his oldest son. So Thomas would have been the one to inherit the title and the family name and the stupid ring and whatever. So does that mean that was like the hardest one for him? It's like at this point, his whole family is dead. He's gonna know it was that. Like, I don't see how you could really leave him alive with his plan. Anyway, so then he would have murdered Thomas and buried him and the reason he's in a separate grave is because he's killed like a whole day later than everyone else. The problem is, okay, so these murders are happening around April 4th, 5th. Estelle doesn't contact the police about the shutters and the note on the door until the 11th. Then the police keep coming to the house and don't find anything. So that means the police aren't searching for Xavier until April 21st. It's been like 2.5, 3 weeks. Nobody's seen him since the 4th.
Yeah.
So they start searching for him officially on the 21st. His car is found the next day outside of a budget hotel called like Formula One. It seems like it's a chain of hotels there, in southern France. Um, Using that and like his credit card information and stuff, they discover that the police discovered that he spent a week in that house after everyone was dead.
That honestly, oh my gosh, that's chilling.
That's the most disturbing part of this to me. So he contrives this plan. It seems like he's been working on it for months because of the like gun practice, the shooting practice, and getting the silencer and stuff like that. Right? Like he seems to be like, kind of putting things into place.
Oh yeah, this is planned out.
I mean, I don't know if they just had sleeping pills or he had to get sleeping pills or whatever, but he lures his son back. He like puts everything in, place to commit these murders and then stays in the house for a week. Why?
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe he was cleaning up, or
that's a good point.
You might.
There's like nothing in the house. There's no trace evidence at all. So it must have been right that he's like scrubbing the floor with a Clorox and a toothbrush. Maybe he's got one of those blue lights. He's like checking everything.
Yeah,
that would be smart.
And maybe he's finalizing his. I mean, the thing about like, I don't know. When you hear about family annihilators, usually they kill their family and then immediately kill themselves. The fact that he's hanging out in this house for a week makes you think that he didn't plan to perhaps kill himself and it was finalizing plans to like go on the run, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean,
it doesn't seem like the behavior of someone that kills themselves, but what do I know? Okay, so he stays in the house for a week. Only then does he get into the car that was missing and leave town. The car that was missing and then found in southern France. So he is caught on a speed camera driving from Nantes to La Rochelle. And they can also track his credit card history, that he stopped in Rochelle to have lunch. He spends the night at a hotel. So like after going through all these like meticulous things to have this very like clean crime scene with no evidence, when he's actually like on the run, he's very sloppy. He's using the ATM. He's using his credit card. He doesn't seem to mind if people find him or what. And he's doing like they describe it as a pilgrimage, but he's sort of like just taking his time, like driving southwest around France, stopping at these like places he liked. I think like where he honeymooned and like where he had lived when he was younger, just like, where he had happy memories. So he leaves this very obvious trail, which is weird. And this ends in Rochebrune-Saint-Argent, where he parks. That's, I guess, where they found the car. He parks it at the hotel. He can be seen on CCTV cameras walking away from the vehicle with bags, including like a big, what do you call those clothes bag things? Those like long bags you could like put a suit in or whatever.
True.
So he has one of those, which people speculate had the rifle in it. I mean, maybe it did, maybe it didn't. This area is apparently known for its mountains. So the speculation was, did he go off into the wilderness to commit suicide, or does he just want people to think that that's what he did, which is definitely what I would lean towards. So search parties have gone around the area looking for him, but no body is ever found. And someone points out that this is like a very good location to get to a lot of other places. Like, because he's on the southwest of France, like, did he, the ocean isn't that far away. Or did he take a highway to Italy? Or did he get on a train and go to Croatia? Like, it would be a good point to get to a lot of other places. And then people kind of lament that this guy is like not very distinctive looking. And particularly, they're like, if he shaves his head, if he grows a beard, they say he looks a little bit like everyone else. There's nothing about him that particularly stands out. And it's funny because when they show pictures of him when he's in his 20s and he meets Agnes, and he seems like very handsome and dashing, but him is just like a middle-aged man. He does look totally nondescript.
Right.
Just a dude. There's just nothing distinctive about him. So there's really no update to this. There have been like 900 sightings of this guy. people think they see him everywhere. People thought he was at this like monastery in Italy or something, and it turned out no, that was just some monk. So a guy on a plane got arrested, and it was just some other French guy. Like he
I
just
heard about the sighting in Chicago. That's like there was a big buzz around that.
yeah, so that happened after this Unsolved Mysteries came out. I think the other two happened previously, just based on like press in France and around France. But since that Unsolved Mysteries came out on Netflix, at least in the US, I don't know where else that's been streaming. He was spotted in Chicago on Lakeshore Drive, and someone got a picture of him, and supposedly that guy was speaking French. And so they were trying to track down the man from that photo. But I was also like, he kind of looks French. I don't know. Like, it should also
that
just
means
be some
nothing.
other French guy. Like, maybe that's him. I hope they find him because this is really fucking terrible and he shouldn't just get to, like, go.
Live his life.
Yeah. But I also don't know if there's, like, anything to literally any of those 900 sightings
Right.
because people also that you're just like, you want to solve this case. You want to be the person that's going to find whatever his full name is. Xavier de whatever.
Yeah, men speaking French everywhere are being turned in.
Yeah, really. Just anyone you don't like that speaks French, you're like, aha! It is him. I did like this episode a lot. I think the storytelling of it is very good because there's really not a lot of mystery, at least to me. I think it's very clear that he did it. I don't buy these other theories at all. So the mystery is basically just like, where is this dude? But the way they do the timeline and sort of like present information as it was known to the public makes it more mysterious and makes it more of an interesting episode instead of like, I feel like in an old Unsolved Mysteries, this segment would have been like 10 minutes, maybe.
Right. No, they do a good job of also like building suspense.
Yeah.
Like the reenactments in this one are done like really well, and the music. I remember watching this and my heart was pounding, especially as they're like about to find the bodies. Like something's happening. Just the
You're
way
like, oh
they
my
lay it out,
God.
with the timeline and everything. And this is completely in French. You have to read subtitles, so I feel like you're also like really immersed in it if you don't speak French. So yeah, this one was well done.
I like that it has some international flavor. Like it's a little bit of a different legal system. It's a little bit of just a different environment than other cases that we've talked about. And yeah, it does like string you along for like a night. I think the like editing of it and the storytelling of it is very good. When I was looking for more information about this, and there really isn't that much, they apparently filmed like much more detailed reenactments of the actual murders. Like something you might see on Forensic Files or something of like what the murders would have looked like. But then they decided that didn't actually help. Like that's not actually going to help find this dude.
Sure.
So they decided not to put that like more graphic imagery in the episode. And I think it benefits from that.
Yeah, I do too.
So that's pretty much it. I mean, I hope we find Xavier. Keep your eyes peeled.
Yeah, no kidding.
If you see that Count Signet ring, do you think he's wearing the ring?
Oh, he's got it for sure.
He's got it. That's such a clue. That's such a clue from like Agatha Christie.
I know.
If someone's like going like, oh, the stamps are in this desk drawer. Wait, what's this ring? Oh my God.
If this was a movie, that is what would get. Someone would be out at a restaurant somewhere and they would glance over at someone's hand and see the ring and realize it was a French speaking dude with like he grew like a big long beard or something.
Yeah. It's interesting to hear from his friends too, because they really, even the friends that think he's guilty, like his friend Bruno, that maybe we hear the most from is the guy who grew up with him. I think he thinks Xavier's guilty, but he still has this like connection to the good times that they had and like their many years of friendship. So it's interesting to hear from him and sort of his take on everything.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, now Samantha gets to talk about a probable hate crime, and it's bleak.
This one is
times are bleak.
So sad. Yeah, rewatching this one was rough. So this is No Ride Home, and it's episode 4. And this is the murder.
What did you want to rename this episode, Samantha?
I sent Liz a text this morning as I'm watching this saying that they really should have called this "Women Would Never Do This."
It's so true, though.
If these were all women, this would not have ever happened. I'm gonna say it right now. Anyway, this is the
Couldn't
murder
agree more.
of Alonzo Brooks, and the episode opens with Alonzo's mother, who tells us that she raised 5 kids in Kansas, 2 boys and 3 girls. Alonzo was the youngest. And Alonzo was such a cute kid. We see photos of him as a boy.
I
He has
know.
the biggest smile. It seems like he was always happy. Yeah, the heartbreak just keeps on going with
And
this one.
everybody has such nice things to say about him. And his mom seems so nice, and his family seems so nice. It's like, ugh.
Yeah, this
They
couldn't
just
have
are.
happened to a nicer family.
It's like they are just ripping out your heart and stomping on it, not out of cruelty, just out of like how bad you feel for them
I
and how
know.
much you just like want to give them a hug or something.
Yeah, this one's awful. So Cindy Brooks, who is Alonzo's sister-in-law, says that Alonzo was definitely his mother's baby. He was her youngest boy, and they had a really special and close relationship. Growing up, Alonzo loved karate and was known as a shy but playful kid who got along with everyone. His uncle remembered how polite he was as a young man, and his sister Felicia describes him as a neat freak. Alonzo's friend, Rodney English, says that Alonzo's favorite color was red and that he always wore boots and a beanie that he kept pulled down close to his eyes.
Which they had several picture examples of. So clearly he did always do that.
Clearly. Alonzo's brother Billy says that the family lived in Topeka, Kansas for a time, kind of while they were all growing up. But then as the kids started to grow up and move out, his mom decided to move to Gardner, Kansas. And at this point, Alonzo went with her. Topeka was more urban and Gardner was more of a suburb. Billy describes it as a lot slower than Topeka. And at this point in the episode, this is exactly what I wrote. At this point in the episode, I'm depressed as fuck. I don't remember writing that. Well, Alonzo's mom is interviewed extensively, and she says that his nickname was Zoe, and she misses how he used to mess up her hair, and she will wear his favorite shirt to feel close to him. Yeah, it is terrible. So now this is what happened. It's April 3rd, 2004, and Alonzo tells his mom that him and some friends are going to a party for a guy who is leaving for the military. His mom seems confused and asks, like, who's we? Like, who is we? We're going to this party? Who are these people? But she says that the person who picked him up was Justin Sprague. I don't know if I pronounced his last name right. My note on Justin is that he's completely worthless. He remembers nothing, and as we will see later, his dumbass has probably contributed to Alonzo's death. Anyway, he does
not the brightest bulb. Maybe
it's hard to know.
Maybe he's just a big dope. I'm not sure.
It's kind of it's hard to parse some of this, and we'll get into it. But anyway, he doesn't remember how they heard about the party or who invited them, or really anything about the party that might be useful to anyone.
It's true though.
Yeah, despite being there.
I mean, I'm assuming he was pretty drunk. I think
maybe
he doesn't want to say that, even though they're not there for that long.
No, this is what okay, so I have a lot of questions about this whole situation. But if you're believing their timeline, which doesn't always match up, they didn't stay at this party for very long, and it was pretty early in the evening. And if you're like out partying, you're not usually like that drunk at like 10, 11 p.m. So I don't know. I'm not sure if we can say that they're lapse in memory as a result of alcohol, but who knows? It's hard to say. Daniel Foon is another friend of Alonzo who also doesn't remember who invited them to the party, so that's helpful. Tyler Broard was also with them, and he doesn't remember Alonzo going to a lot of parties with the group because he was a little bit older than him.
I thought that was an interesting detail. Like, this isn't something that had happened a lot.
Yeah, it didn't seem like Alonzo is referred to as pretty shy. Like when we see him at the party, his friends remember being surprised at how outgoing and kind of lively he was, because he was normally kind of shy and quiet, and it doesn't seem like he went to a lot of these parties. And also, they don't say how old they were at the time, but probably underage. They're probably at least under 21.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not going to house parties because you can go to a bar and drink. So probably that's what maybe Alonzo would have preferred. But I don't know. He moved away from Topeka, and it seems like his lifelong friends stayed in Topeka. So I think maybe he was just hanging out with these people, and they were underage, and so they went to house parties. I'm not totally sure.
It seems like, based on one of their comments, and I can't remember which white guy said this, but it seemed like they were more friends with his older brother. And then
Yeah.
Alonzo was like, "Oh, I want to go," and they were like, "Sure, whatever." But I don't think that is something that had happened a lot for them to have like, I don't like an established way that it works. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, that might be true. Um Okay, so Justin remembers that before they left for the party, Alonzo stopped to adjust his boots so that his boots were tied a little tighter. He always wore two pairs of socks because he had hurt his ankle playing football. So I'm assuming the extra layers of socks and the tight boots helped sort of give him some extra support. He was sort of limping from this injury. And this detail will be important later. Uh, as I'm sure you know if you've watched this episode. For some reason, even though there was only 4 of them, they took multiple cars, which I guess maybe is because they wanted to go separate ways after the party. I wrote this seems stupid and girls would never do this.
No, I'm sure they just like didn't want to smush in the back. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
maybe.
Which seems
There was
like
only 4 of them, though.
bro.
So
I know, but it just seems like bro behavior to be like, I don't want to
yeah,
sit in the back with so and so. I'll
yeah, I
take
guess
my
this
own
whole thing is
car.
bro behavior. Uh, actually, I don't know if there may have been more than 4 of them because they reference like other people, like
But I feel like
someone
those
later
people might
referenced
have had their own yeah, see, the details of this are not entirely clear
no.
because it's not sure I'm not sure if the people they talk about were just people they knew that were there or went with. But also this is so far away. This is
Yeah,
like
it's
an
like
hour
over an
away.
hour away. Yeah,
Can
so
you imagine driving this? This is another reason they have to be underage. Why do they drive more
an
than an
hour
hour just to drink a beer?
in a house with people they don't know. Yeah, this is 1,
And they,
bro behavior. 2,
yeah.
I mean, I guess this is a smallish town, not a lot going on. But they have to be in my opinion, they must be underage because yeah, you wouldn't do this.
It was like, oh, let's go drive over an hour to drink shitty beer. It's like, well, we could just do that here.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, Alonzo rode with Justin. The party was in Lacine, which was a town that none of them had been to or really heard about prior to this night. And it was a little over an hour away.
They don't even remember how they heard about this party. That's what dopes these are.
Yeah. They don't remember anything about this. So it's a tiny town in the middle of nowhere. There isn't even there's like one convenience store. There's no grocery store. There's not a lot of houses. And not a lot of black people. Maybe none.
This is a one stop sign town instead of a one stop light town.
Yes. So the party seemed like a typical house party, although there was a lot of people there. People were drinking beer, playing flip cup. Justin guesses that the age range of the partygoers was anywhere between 16 and 21.
Wow, sounds like absolute hell.
I would hate this. I can't think of anything I would want to do
Picturing
less
me
than go to this
having
party.
driven all this way to walk into a party of a bunch of 16-year-olds playing flip cup, and just they're playing like the worst music you've ever heard.
I'm sure it was
Who knows?
country music.
Oh my god. Oh my god. There was not like one. Probably Alonzo was the cutest guy there. So you like walk in, you see oh god. Oh, I'm just picturing like the attire.
Can you imagine
Like,
the smell?
I'm gonna go meet cute boys in the middle of nowhere in Kansas. And you
Mm-hmm.
walk into a party of 16-year-olds playing flip cup, wearing I don't even know what they're wearing, but I know that I hate it.
Yeah, I'm sure it's jeans and t-shirts. Apparently 4 dudes live at this house, so I'm imagining the
Oh,
smell, the
just
mess, the
bathroom,
attire. Oh my god, the bathroom.
the never cleaned bathtub.
Oh my god. What a horror. Honestly, I can't think of anywhere I would want to be less. So Justin recalls that Alonzo was having a blast playing cards and playing drinking games. Daniel says that when he got there, he estimated that the party was anywhere between like 30 to 50 people, which just seems like a lot for a pretty small town.
On how big this house is, but I mean that's a lot, really.
That's a big house party. That's a sizable house party. Tyler remembers
Most people don't have that house from like Clueless.
Right.
It's like most people don't have a house that's like perfect for large parties. I feel like if you cram 50 people in a house, that's kind of a lot.
This is a lot. Let's see. Tyler remembers that most of the people at the party were friends with each other, but not them. And it was a little bit more country of a crowd than they were used to.
Yeah, because they're in the country.
in the middle of nowhere.
I,
So
I
yeah,
wonder why.
of course, all these people from Gardner don't know any of these people, and all of them know each other. So it's kind of weird
We
dynamic.
went to a party where we didn't know anyone, and guess what? We didn't know anybody.
Surprising.
Bro, you don't say.
Daniel says that him and Alonzo were having a good time. They went to the kitchen together and took a shot of Jaeger. He says that he turned around to talk. Okay, this account is dubious to me, but I don't know. He turned around, according to him, he turned around to talk to someone, and when he turned back, Alonzo and some other dude were getting up in each other's faces, arguing. He said that the argument was starting to heat up, so he stepped in between them and tried to separate them. And as the last we hear about any conflict from any of these dudes that were there, supposedly the whole time.
Yeah.
So there was an altercation that happened. And then Justin dances around the fact that people at this party were racist. Tyler says, quote, Alonzo probably was the only black man that was there. Yeah, no shit.
Because it's a party in the fucking boonies.
Yeah. Daniel says...
Men are so dumb. Sorry, men. But learn from these mistakes, okay?
Seriously. Daniel says, quote, Alonzo didn't sweat stuff like that and let it ruin his good time. And when he says stuff like that, he's referring to racism. Being at a party full of racists. Oh, he didn't sweat it. Being the only black man in a room full of racists. I think if we could interview Alonzo today, he might have a different recollection of his feelings towards these people. I don't know.
I think it's a very naive statement, and I think he's saying like, well, we were white and Alonzo was friends with us, therefore he would be fine left in a house with 30 to 50 people he doesn't know, some of which were definitely racist. Like, that's quite a stretch.
Daniel.
I think he's very sheltered.
Yeah. Daniel, you need to, I don't know. Hopefully he's figured things out by now. Anyway, Daniel says that at this point he got a call about going to another party and was encouraged by another friend who basically was like, let's go. And apparently this friend was his ride, so he had to leave with this dude.
Which we don't hear from, and that makes us all like a little bit confusing.
So confusing. So he leaves with someone else. He says that he did say goodbye to Alonzo. Then Tyler says that this is like 45 minutes to an hour after they got there, which why you would drive an hour to stay at a party for 45 minutes, I'm not really sure. But Tyler also left at about an hour. He remembers shaking Alonzo's hand and wishing him a good night. He thinks that it was around 11 p.m. Tyler says that he didn't think anything of leaving Alonzo there because Justin was his ride, which, okay, that's kind of fair, I guess.
Yeah.
Him and Justin were still there, so I guess you assume they're gonna, like, I realize dudes don't have to use the buddy system, but this whole thing is so infuriating to me.
Well, it's just, obviously it doesn't occur to them at all that would be a problem. And it just points out the burden placed on women to supposedly prevent violence, that of course we would think of this. Of course we would think about this all the time, that we wouldn't drive out to the middle of fucking nowhere where no one knows anybody and then leave our friend there. Like, and if we did, everybody would be like, what the hell is wrong with you? Right? Like that's just obvious. But that's because this extra burden is placed on us to like be in charge of our own safety all the time. And it's clear that none of these dudes ever had thought about anything. Ever. Because they just come across as very naive. That the furthest thing from their mind was that there could be a problem, even though Alonzo has already gotten into a fight with some guy.
Right. So then Justin describes what happens next. Him and Alonzo wanted to smoke, but they were both out, so he left to go get them some cigarettes. Justin says that at the end of this long driveway, he should have turned left, but instead he went right and got lost on some gravel roads. He says that he got his car stuck and he ended up about 30 minutes north of where he was supposed to be. At this point, Justin says that he called his friend Adam, who was at the party, and asked this Adam dude to tell Alonzo that he had gotten lost and wasn't going to make it back to the party. Justin says that he told his friend Adam to give Alonzo a ride home. So There
The
you go.
problem is that we never hear from Adam.
No.
So why doesn't he give Alonzo a ride home? I don't know. We don't
Yeah,
know.
that's a
And that's very
big
frustrating.
question. That's a big question for me. Why, after all this went down, Justin didn't find Adam and say what the absolute fuck, and why Justin can't explain to us what happened with this Adam dude is
Because
another
he's
big
like,
question to
oh,
me.
my understanding is that they like missed each other, or he couldn't find Alonzo. He thought Alonzo had already left. I was like,
Yeah,
you don't know for sure. You didn't go to his house and go like, what the fuck, guy?
right.
I called you and to like take care of this problem, and you didn't. Okay, first of all, is this guy driving around drunk? Is that why he gets lost and stuck on a gravel road? And is that why
Right.
he doesn't want to be more specific about what's happening?
It could be. It could be. That could be part
Because
of
I
it.
was also like, oh, just because you're lost 30 minutes away, you drove an hour to go to this party and stay 45 minutes. You can drive 30 minutes back to pick up Alonzo.
Yeah, that's another
Also,
big question.
you still haven't gotten your cigarettes.
Right. Right.
So why are you just going home?
Don't know. There's a lot of unanswered questions. These timelines don't make a whole lot of sense. All right, so that's the night of the party. It's what everyone remembers, supposedly. The morning after the party, Alonzo's mother gets a call from one of his friends who asks if Alonzo is home. She looks around the house and he's not there, and immediately she demands to know where he is. And the unnamed friend on the phone says, well, maybe he spent the night at somebody's house. To which his mother says, no way. He always comes home. You need to figure out where the fuck he is.
So this is 2004?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm assuming Alonzo doesn't have a cell phone.
I don't know if Alonzo has this. I think he does because a lot of people say that they would have expected him to call, and some of his friends have cell phones. Like Justin has a cell phone, so he may have.
So why does Justin call Adam to say he's not coming back and tell Alonzo instead of calling Alonzo?
Okay, you're right. So maybe Alonzo doesn't have a phone.
I did not have a phone in 2004. I'm just wondering if that is a factor.
It might be. I mean, I do
also find it weird. Okay, because otherwise I find it weird that they call the house and they ask the mom, is Alonzo there? It's like, call Alonzo. But if he doesn't have a cell phone, they're going to call the landlord from the house, right?
And they found, yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah, I don't think he did have a cell phone. I think you're right. So, yeah, he's missing. His mom is like, no, he always comes home. So there's no way that he just slept at someone's house and didn't like phone to tell me that he wasn't coming home. She tells the friend to call people and find out where he is. Daniel says that the next morning, everyone's phone started blowing up with people calling and asking where is Alonzo and who saw him last. Justin, of course, is the person who saw him last, or maybe Adam. The person in the documentary that saw him last is, of course, asked what the fuck happened to Alonzo because he was his ride. According to him, his recollection was that Adam was going to give Alonzo a ride home, but Adam said that he thought Alonzo already left or that they'd missed each other somehow. Okay.
He missed. Okay, so this is a party of 30 to 50 white people. How tall is Alonzo?
He's very tall.
Yeah. Couldn't tell if he was there or not.
This is so frustrating.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So next we get to know Rodney English a little bit better. Rodney was Alonzo's best friend. He lived in Topeka. And I think the juxtaposition of Rodney with these other three dudes is pretty deliberate in the show.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be there regardless, but I think it's really interesting how they did it. I don't think that Rodney would have left Alonzo alone at this party. Rodney talks about how they would, as kids, they would play outside all the time. They would build ramps in the street to jump their bikes. They'd play basketball and football in the yard. They'd play King of the Hill. The two were basically brothers. Alonzo's mother called Rodney the day after the party to ask if Alonzo was with him, and Rodney knew right away that something was not right about this story. So he drove to Gardner, and he met up with Alonzo's friends, whom he didn't know, but they went together to look for Alonzo. Justin drove them to the scene and to the farmhouse where the party had taken place. They all got out and started walking around to look and see if maybe Alonzo had gotten drunk and, like, they say decided to sleep outside.
Passed out in a bush is what they mean.
Yeah. At this point in the documentary, Unsolved Mysteries is filming Rodney walking around in present day the scene where this took place. Rodney describes walking across the street to look on the other side of the road for Alonzo, which is when he discovered Alonzo's hat and one of the boots. He points to the area where he found the boots, and then across the street, sort of a little bit, I don't know, kitty corner, they found the other boot, which was laying beside the creek bank. Based on where the boots were found, Rodney's theory is that someone leaving the farmhouse flung them out the windows of their car.
Which makes sense.
Yeah. At this point, Rodney says that some guy drove up to them on a four-wheeler and told them to leave. And he says that at that point they knew something was up. Alonzo is missing and something is totally wrong about the whole situation. And then present day, Rodney tells the crew that he doesn't feel safe in the scene and that he wants to leave. And I do not blame him.
Yeah, nothing suspicious about you just being outside. It sounds like on a road, on public property, and a guy just coming up and saying, you need to leave. I wouldn't feel safe either without even this like clearly racist component.
Yeah, exactly. So Rodney asks Justin what I think we all want to ask Justin, which is, how do you take someone to a party and you don't come home with them? Especially a party that is out in the middle of nowhere over an hour from home.
Yeah, and you could tell that he just thought that these other friends were stupid.
I guess.
He was just like, really? You took my best friend out and basically left him in a cornfield? Cool.
Yeah, cool.
Great planning.
Present day Justin says, when I left him, he was still having a damn good time. As if that makes it okay?
Okay, here's what I think, though, is that it's they thought Alonzo was going to get laid.
Maybe.
And so they were like, we're not going to, be too concerned about him getting home because the top priority is Alonzo having sex, right?
It could.
Like, when I left, he was chatting up this girl. He was having a great time. I wasn't going to interfere with that. He'll find a way home. That priority is way down the list.
That could be it.
That's my theory.
Yeah, it really could be. So Alonzo's siblings are notified at this point. Alonzo's oldest brother, Billy, and his wife, Cindy, drive to Gardner and get in touch with the owner of the house. But this is where it gets confusing. The house, was empty, and it was, a rented property. And at this point, I thought that meant it was completely unoccupied, which is not true. Later, we find out that 4 dudes lived there. But they say when they got there, the house was abandoned. There was no one there. And Cindy actually says, I couldn't believe there was a party here, a huge party the night before. So it seems like people just
it's very creepy.
It's weird. It's weird because you would expect people to be super hungover, probably hanging out, I don't know, doing whatever.
No, it has some Baraska vibes.
Yeah,
I don't like it.
Just that everyone's gone. You
go there and you're like, oh, 50 people were here last night, and now it's just cigarette butts and Jaeger bottles.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even sure if the guys living there had moved out their stuff or they just were dudes and basically didn't own any furniture anyway.
Could be.
Did their normal house look like an abandoned house? Okay. Side note is that there is a subreddit called Male Living Spaces. And it is one of the most depressing / hilarious things on the internet. Straight men, get it together. You're living in squabble for by choice. Everybody thinks that's I've been in my place for 2 years, really happy with it now.
It's just folding chair.
A folding chair and a TV and the video game controller to the chair and a coaster on the ground. I don't understand. If there's any decor, it is literally a flag that was not ironed and still has the crease marks in it, or it is a poster and it is up with tape. Someone nailed up a curtain. There wasn't a bar. They nailed up a curtain and then was I've never hung curtains before. Did I do this right? It's have you ever seen a curtain? I don't understand. Anyway,
there's if you're not on Reddit, there's a Twitter account called Male Living Spaces that reads.
That's how I
see it. And
you see, the most depressing / hilarious environments that men are just choosing to live in. So it makes me kind of wonder if their house just looked abandoned. It's oh no, 4 dudes live here. They just sleep in a sleeping bag in a closet. Which I definitely knew a guy in college who was renting part of a house. His part was the closet, and it was just a mattress on a ground.
Okay,
inside a closet.
Maybe shouldn't admit to this, but in the house I lived in, or the apartment I lived in college, we had someone living in our closet. But there was
Did they ever bring back dates to the closet?
I
That's the
don't.
real.
I don't think
It's
so. And
like, hey, baby, we can do it in here, and then you just like, it was like one of those wooden foldy closet doors, if you know what I'm talking about, that
okay.
has the like slats, you know? So he like would pull that back and then there's just a fucking mattress on the ground. Yes.
Yeah, this is a slightly different situation. We just had this giant closet that we like would keep bikes in basically, and like it was huge. And a friend of one of my roommates, she had like a bad she was living in the dorms and had like a bad situation and wanted to get out halfway through the semester, and we were like, "Well, come live in our closet and pay like a quarter of the rent you would normally pay because it's a closet." And her like little twin size mattress actually like fit in the closet so she could go in there and sleep at night. And I don't know, all the apartment buildings in this complex were like this, and I'm pretty sure the landlords knew people were doing this and like letting people sleep in their closets and pay a little bit of the rent.
See,
So
okay, but that was not that person's plan A. That
no.
was their plan B. You know what I mean? Like this
Yeah.
guy that I'm talking about, that was his plan A.
And he was
I'm gonna
fine with
rent,
it.
and it was a coat closet off of the like main living space, so it was like long and thin. Whatever. I don't know why I'm still talking about this, but
Hilarious. But this is what this house
yes,
almost certainly looked
yes.
like.
I once went to look at an apartment to see if I wanted to rent it that had not been cleaned at all from the previous tenants. It was fucking disgusting. But what will always remain in my mind is that around the toilet was just chip crumbs. Like someone had sat on the toilet and ate like big chip crumbs of Doritos. Like someone had been sitting on the toilet eating Doritos, left all these crumbs, and then they just were let us see the apartment like that. And that's gonna be burned in my fucking brain for all eternity.
Disgusting. Oh, I'm horrified.
I mean,
People are out there among us. People who sit on the
yeah.
toilet eating chips walk
And
among
then
us, folks.
just get up and leave. Just leave their whole life. Like that was the last time they used the can, and they're done, and they moved on.
Oh,
Yeah. Guess what? Didn't rent it. Believe it or not.
shocked. So after visiting the house, Billy and Cindy drove through town, and this must have been like such a horror movie, creepy
It seems like
moment.
Children of the Corn, which I haven't even seen, but yeah, that's just like this small town, middle of America that's going to kill you.
Yeah, they describe driving through town and just feeling the eyes on them,
I hate it
which
so much.
is so creepy. So they meet up with the sheriff, and Cindy says that they tried to make him understand how serious it was that Alonzo had not shown up at home. Cindy says that the sheriff's response was, "Oh, he'll show up soon. He's probably out, quote, doing what kids do, just walking around." And I'd like to first of all point out that Alonzo was 23 years old, and kids and adults don't usually just, I don't know, walk around, not like
That's how
letting people know where they
boring this town is. Is that he's like, oh no, that's what we do for fun. We just wander.
So Sydney points out to him that Alonzo didn't have his shoes and that it had just rained. So
The idea that you'd have to point out facts to disprove that theory. Oh, I wouldn't worry about it. I know you're concerned that your brother has been the victim of a hate crime, but he's probably just wandering around in the wet in his socks.
yeah, probably. So at this point, that's all they could do. They say that they were forced to leave it in the hands of the sheriff. The former sheriff did agree to be like recorded for the show discussing the case. He didn't want to be on camera, so we hear his voice, and he tells us that he received a report of a missing person in the scene, and he went to the house, but Alonzo wasn't there. He says that he and I assume like a deputy walked to the creek bed that night, but there was no indication that Alonzo or anyone else was there, and he reported negative contact. Okay, so that was April 4th, which I think is the day after Alonzo disappeared. On April 7th, the case was turned over to the KBI, or the Kansas Bureau of Investigation. Within a few days, there was an extensive search of the area around the farmhouse. The KBI evidence team, along with search dogs, combed the area and walked the creek bank. The Kansas Highway Patrol provided a helicopter which searched the area from the air. And this is kind of important because so there's like a creek that runs along the property, and there were a lot of people involved in the search, and search dogs, I believe cadaver dogs were brought in at one point, and no one saw anything.
And they were wearing very reflective sunglasses.
Yes.
So
Of course. Of course they were. The FBI enjoyed the investigation on April 10, and news footage from the time says that the FBI was investigating to determine if Alonzo may have been the victim of a hate crime. Because, quote, according to some witnesses at the party, Alonzo was threatened and was the target of racial slurs. Which is weird that, like, all his friends that were there never mentioned this. Like, did this happen after all of these dudes left?
Maybe.
Daniel says he saw a confrontation. Was that unrelated?
He saw a confrontation, but also doesn't tell us what it was about. Like, is this about a girl? Is this someone spilled someone's drink? Or is this dude's racist? We don't know.
Daniel's story is that they were having a grand old time doing shots of Jaeger. He literally turned around, and when he turned back, Alonzo was getting into a really heated fight to the point where they had to be, like, torn off each other.
As a very chill dude.
Yes.
I didn't get the impression that he was, like, gonna just get into fights, like me. So, yeah, I think, yeah.
There are some holes in the story, and I don't really understand why. I'm not even saying that, like, the friends are involved, but it's just very strange. It's very strange.
I kind of don't think the friends are involved. I think they're just dopes, but maybe they're guilt.
Maybe they don't want to seem like complicit, or maybe they feel so guilty that they're trying, like,
they're trying to make themselves look better, I think. But
yeah, maybe they realize
maybe they are involved,
how bad they look. I'm not sure. It's very strange. Anyway, on April 13th, the Lee Summit Underwater Rescue and Dive Team was brought in to search the creek. The dude who coordinated the search of the creek says that the creek was about 3 feet deep at the time of the search. He had 3 people in the creek and then 3 people on either side of the creek, and they basically combed a pretty large stretch of the creek that went through the farmhouse property. They found nothing. 15 days after Alonzo went missing, his brother Billy says that they were at a loss. The cadaver dogs hadn't found anything. The dive team hadn't found anything. The sheriff says that between the KBI and the FBI, there were hundreds of interviews and several polygraphs. Justin says that every other day they were meeting with investigators, giving them everything they knew, like who was there, phone numbers, etc. Justin says that investigators kept telling him that Alonzo probably got drunk, took off his shoes, and decided to walk home, which makes no sense because one, his home was over an hour away, so there's
my car. So yeah, that's a really long walk.
Yes, and also his ankle was messed up, so there's no way that he would just take off his boot, which was providing support for his ankle, and then decide to walk home. Even drunk, he would not have done that.
Or he wouldn't have gotten far, and they would find him by the side of the road, holding his ankle in pain.
The other problem with the story is that they have not found him. So are you suggesting he got drunk, took off his shoe, tried to walk home, and then died in the woods somewhere? Like, what's the other part of this? Because we haven't found Alonzo.
Even if he did die in the woods, you think they would find him dead.
Yeah. Alonzo's family wanted to go out to the farmhouse to search, but Alonzo's mother says the sheriff told them no. So
weird.
Cindy says that the sheriff told them to stop calling.
Yeah.
Great.
Some really great relations with the
family of the missing.
How about you don't call so much? You're making me feel bad.
Yeah. On May 1st, which is 21 days after the party, they finally let the Brooks go down to search the property. The family reached out to friends and got a lot of volunteers. Billy says that they didn't know what they were doing, but they just hoped to find something that might be able to help. Unsolved Mysteries interviews a woman, and we're like at the scene, we're like at the property, filming her. They interview a woman who's helped with the search, and she says that her and a group of people were walking towards a shed that's not there anymore, but that they were always suspicious of. And when she looked up, she said, "Oh crap, there he is. There's Zoe." And they had discovered Alonzo's body.
Do you make anything of the fact that the shed is now gone?
The shed is never mentioned again. And I didn't notice this the first time I watched it. But on rewatch, I was like, tell me more about this shed. Because she says we always wanted them to search the shed. So it's not clear to me if they ever did search the shed. So yes,
also, a little bit later, the medical examiner is talking about how hard it would be to move a body and that it's not very practical and you would have to go through this wooded, uneven area. And I was kind of like, not if the body was in the shed.
Yeah. Yes. I do make something of it, and I wish we would have learned more about the shed, but her one mention of it is all. And I guess that is probably nothing. I mean, maybe they never did search it and now it's gone, so that's it. But Yeah, I wish we knew more about it. Edward Ramirez, who is Alonzo's uncle, radioed Billy, who ran along the creek to where they were. And this is heartbreaking because Alonzo's brother and uncle are interviewed for the show and describe how hard it was to find him and to imagine
Yeah.
him as he used to be, full of life, and now he's there, just dead.
The body's been decomposing. Like, it's not like they found him right away.
Right.
So it's, I'm sure, quite a ghoulish, grim sight.
Yeah, for his family and friends having to discover
Yeah,
him,
it's
it's
terrible.
really awful. So the forensic pathologist, I didn't write down his name, but he describes not finding any penetrating injuries or bone fractures that may have explained Alonzo's death. There were no stab wounds, no gunshot wounds. He says that there were no anatomic signs of drowning, but that does not rule out drowning as a cause of death. The soft tissues of the neck were gone due to scavengers and insects. So it
See,
was
that's so sad.
it wasn't possible to determine if he had been strangled. They couldn't, really tell if he had bruises or anything, if he was beaten up. They really couldn't tell anything, and his death was ruled undetermined. So no one believes that this was anything but foul play. I actually have a lot of questions because Unsolved Mysteries plays a clip from a news broadcast from the time, and the reporter says that at the time of the party there were 4 men living in the house that have since been evicted. And I'm like, who are those dudes? They haven't been mentioned at all. This is the only mention of people actually living in the house.
Yeah.
Why weren't they there the day after the party? Like, I have a lot of questions that
Right.
are not answered. So of course there are a ton of rumors. Cindy tells of a rumor she heard that there was a white woman at the party and her and Alonzo got to flirting. They were kind of cozied up to each other, and according to the rumor she heard, some of the guys at the party did not like this.
I buy it.
I do.
I think it also makes sense why his friends would have left him.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but I think there's something to that these dudes were like, well, he's gonna be fine. We're not worried about getting home.
I'm not gonna cramp his style. He's talking to this girl.
Yeah. I mean, that's very
I wish we knew more from Adam about why he, doesn't find him and make him go back, but I'm guessing that that's part of it.
Yeah, it could be. And maybe maybe he wasn't around and Adam thought he was in a room somewhere making out with this girl. I don't know.
Right.
And we'll maybe never know. I'm not sure because Adam fucking isn't in the show.
Doesn't exist. He's a specter.
Yeah, maybe. So Tyler believes that someone threw around the N-word and that Alonzo got mad and confronted him.
He tells us that Alonzo would have had a problem with that.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, thanks for your great insight, Alonzo's friend. We wouldn't have gotten that without you. Oh, he would have objected to being called the N-word. You don't say.
You don't say. So, of course, at this point, with all his friends having left him there, he would easily have been outnumbered and could easily have been beat up. So now the issue is that Alonzo's body was not in the creek while it was being extensively searched by law enforcement and search teams and independent dive teams. But within 30 minutes of the family being there, they found him.
Yeah, which is so sad. You really wish that a professional would have found him instead of his family.
Yes, you absolutely do. The dive team guy says that if Alonzo had been there when his team was there, that they would have easily found him because the creek level was so low that they could see the bottom. So with all those people combing it, there's no way that they would have.
And it clearly is not hidden because his family finds him in 30 minutes.
Yeah,
like they literally find him just by walking up. It's not like he's under a bush or something.
And we can see it because they show
it's in plain sight. Yeah.
They show a photo of the crime scene and the body is of course blurred out, but you can see it's out in the open. So there's no way this was hidden under a bush. The medical examiner thinks that he could have floated down the creek once the level in the creek rose. But the problem with this theory is that it means that the body would have been in the water for 27 days. And the people who saw his body when it was found are positive that it was in too good of condition to have been out exposed to the elements or in water for that not long. Now, I should say that the medical examiner says something totally different. He says that the condition of the body, according to his professional opinion, is consistent with having been in water for that long. So I don't know what to believe, but the people that saw Alonzo's body said that he didn't even look that dead. Of course, there was some damage to his body, but he didn't it didn't seem like he had been in water in the Kansas heat for a month. So I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. Additionally, this is weird. Alonzo's personal items were found with him, and they are in near perfect condition, including papers that he had in his wallet.
Yeah, that is strange, right? Like, if he's supposedly being dragged around by this creek for a month, you wouldn't think paper in his wallet would
Yeah.
be waterlogged.
Yeah, for sure. And everything, his mom has the wallet and pulls everything out and says, everything is, he has his little like video card. Everything is
Mhm.
pristine. So, yeah.
Also, shouldn't the police have that?
Well,
Clearly, they don't care.
the case was we'll get to this later, but the case was technically closed. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
So, with anyone with an ounce of common sense believes that Alonzo's body was dumped in the creek after the official searches were done. Unsolved. Oh, that's it. That's the last note I took. I think the very end of this is mainly just people saying how much Alonzo meant to them and how this has been so terrible. And then at the very end, I think it's Billy tells us that the official ruling from, I think, the KBI was that that foul play contributed to Alonzo's death or something like that, or like a crime was committed, I think is what they said in the show. But and that the case was closed. Which is like, isn't that where the
Okay.
case starts? Like, you determine that there's a crime and then you start investigating to find out who did. Isn't there a whole second part of that where you find out who did the crime? Like, they closed the case.
This is what's so funny to me, like in conversations about defunding the police. It's like, what are we going to do without them? It's like, oh boy, what will we do without them to do nothing?
Tell us that a crime was
What
committed. Well, thank you. We all
a
knew that.
crime was committed. We don't know what. We don't know what happened. End. Like, thanks for nothing.
Yeah.
Can we get some teenagers in a van with a dog to solve this mystery? Like, anyone would do better.
Yeah. Yeah, this makes no sense. So I didn't have a ton of time to do a lot of like internet rabbit hole exploration, but I did pull up an article from screenrant.com, which I thought was interesting. I mean, there's obviously a lot of articles about this case, but this article specifically is about an interview. It's reporting on an interview that the director for this episode did with a podcast called You Can't Make This Up. So you might want to look up that episode of the podcast if you want to hear more from this guy. This article says that No Ride Home has fascinated Netflix streamers because of the conflicting case information. For example, Brooke's party acquaintances appear in Unsolved Mysteries and recall how their half black, half Mexican friend was the target of racial slurs, but none of them provide a good explanation as to why he was left there alone. The article describes statements made by the director of this episode, whose name is Marcus A. Clark, when he appeared in the podcast to discuss the case. According to the article, Clark cites feeling like there was an emotional disconnect among the partygoers. And here's the quote from the article. Quote, Clark expressed concern about the logistics of the friends' travel plans and their differing accounts about what exactly happened on the evening in question. Justin acknowledges that he drove Brooks to the party, but also reveals that he later got lost and decided to return home. Justin apparently made a phone call and the article says to Brooks. I'm not sure if it was to Brooks or to Adam, who stated that he'd catch a ride with, quote, Adam, an alleged friend who curiously isn't referenced again in Unsolved Mysteries. This is more from the article. In Unsolved Mysteries, several of Brooks' friends address speculation about their possible involvement, and one of them admits that some theories could actually be true. And even Brooks's mother expresses skepticism at the end of the episode, stating, quote, the kids don't say shit. Some of the interviewees appear genuinely perplexed, while others discuss Brooks's disappearance without explaining the specifics of what actually transpired that night, which we talked about. So Clark does stop short of actually accusing them of anything and also acknowledges that they did all agree to be on camera and to talk about the case. But he does say what I think is pretty obvious to all of us. And here is the quote from the podcast. He says, quote, you go to a party with your friend and people are throwing around the N-word. That's a red flag. That is a serious red flag. You might leave right then. You have to go. You have to say this is not a safe space, particularly if people are drinking. There's just a lot of unanswered questions, and a lot of the accounts don't exactly match up, and there's a lot of holes in the stories, and it's hard to say why. I don't know. I think we talked about earlier that I think the friends are involved, but I do wonder if they know something. Honestly, someone has to know something, right?
Yeah,
Like,
that's the thing.
there were
I'd say several people.
at
This is
the
a big party. This
Yeah.
is a big party. And those 4 guys that cleared out of that house, they know something. I bet a lot of people in this town know something.
Yeah.
And that's why I think that me and Samantha need to go there, start knocking on doors and making some threats because they need to be shook down. That's how this is going to get solved.
That someone has to. I mean, come on.
Someone knows something. This is a tiny town where fucking nothing ever happens.
Yeah, and
You don't
suddenly
think this is the number one piece of conversation for years?
Yeah, there's got to be some.
Tons of people were at that party and saw something happen. And maybe it was a fight that, like, I don't ended up being lethal. Maybe it wasn't like, you know, a premeditated murder, but something happened.
Yeah,
And I'm very suspicious about that shed.
I want to know more about the shed. So there is a small update to the case, which you may have seen, which is that his body was exhumed earlier this summer. In an article for CNN, the FBI, and it says the FBI announced last month that they were offering a reward of up to $100,000 to anyone who has information about Alonzo's death. And this is a quote from U.S. Attorney Stephen McAllister, who said, "We are investigating whether Alonzo was murdered. His death certainly was suspicious, and someone, likely multiple people, know what happened that night in April 2004. It is past time for the truth to come out. The code of silence must be broken. Alonzo's family deserves to know the truth, and it's time for justice to be served." So the FBI, in this article, it notes that the FBI added that his death was being investigated as a potentially racially motivated crime. Of course. But that's all I have. I don't know if there was really much else. I do say, like, the producers of the show, people involved with the show, do think like this is one that has the potential to be solved because so many people were there.
I hope that the money is going to be enough motivation to shake someone out of the woodwork. I'm hoping that someone at the party who wasn't willing to go out on a limb and, I don't know, maybe snitch on a friend or whatever, right? Years ago in 2004. It's been a long time. They might not be friends with those people anymore. They might live somewhere else. Like, things have changed. The dynamic has changed. Maybe that money is going to be enough motivation to come forward and be like, I witnessed this fight. It got out of control. You know, whatever happened. So yeah, I hope something comes out of it. Because I could see a situation where at the time they wouldn't be willing to say anything, or they felt too implicated, or, you know, maybe this person's 16 or something, right? Like, but I really hope that we get a solution to this because it's just so sad.
This whole episode is heartbreaking. It really is. So senseless. Like, and seeing Alonzo's friends and family, like Rodney and his brothers and sisters and his mom.
Yeah, his poor mom.
Like,
yeah, goddamn. I do think there's something to the friends being willing to participate, though you could say that's like to make them look good, so I don't know. But I'm just imagining the other people at that party when they realize that this has become an episode of Unsolved Mysteries being like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I never wanted to talk about this again.
Right.
So
yeah, get fucking Adam over here. I need to talk to you.
Yeah, where the fuck is Adam? I have some words.
I have some questions for Adam.
I have questions for everyone in this town, really.
Yeah.
Which is probably like 12 people, but I want to talk to each and every one of them.
We're going to roll into this town and knocking heads.
This is awful. Also, like, the place where people just like hate me on sight. And I'm white. But I'll go to like a stop in a town like this to get gas or something, and everybody just looks at me like, ugh.
I know what you mean.
Look at that girl with her weird hair. So that'll be fun when we go and shake down Kansas.
Well, that's it. That's episodes 3 and 4.
If you're looking for a depressing time because the pandemic isn't bringing you down enough, can't recommend episodes 3 and 4, the reboot of Unsolved Mysteries, more. A guy murders his whole family, and then another guy is probably killed by racists after his friends abandon him.
It's great. It's great.
Wow, very uplifting content.
Talk about a UFO next month.
Yes, and we're gonna have. I think we're trying to have Rob on to talk about that UFO with us, because obviously he's gonna bring all that expertise that we don't have years and years to dedicate to research on this. So he'll bring his big brain.
We're calling in an expert.
Yeah. Very needed. And then maybe we'll take a month to do Riverdale before we do even more Unsolved Mysteries reboot, which we don't even know what that's going to be.
I am excited.
That's a mystery.
I'm super excited.
Yeah, it'll be cool.
It's pretty much the only thing I am actually looking forward to. Now that I think about it.
I saw that. Okay, so this isn't even until next. The only thing I'm looking forward to, and this isn't even until next year, is that I saw that there are 3 R.L. Stine Fear Street movies
Oh,
that have been filmed and are done, and they're going to be on Netflix next year.
okay. If they're
And
done,
that's
Netflix, what are you
yeah.
doing? Get them out sooner.
I don't know why I have to wait till next year for that, but that's literally I saw that and I was like, that's literally the only thing I have to look forward to. Wow. That really speaks to my teen heart. Someone in those 3 movies better drink what they think is a glass of wine and it turns out to be a glass of blood. That better fucking be in one of those movies because that happened all the time in those books. Which I thought might really be like a concern in adult life.
That and like the Bermuda Triangle and quicksand.
Yeah.
You were like,
Yeah, exactly.
These are gonna be big problems for me someday.
Somehow I would take a sip of fucking blood and go, "Oh, this is an interesting wine.
What's the
what is?
vintage?
Yeah, what's the vintage?" And then someone would go, "Oh, that's not wine. That's blood." What? Oh, I'm so excited. Also, I think they're making like a Christopher Pike movie or book. Finally. I was saying I loved those Christopher Pike books. You have to be like exactly my age, I think, to be nostalgic for that. But the other day I was reminiscing with some friends about it and I was like, it's time they release those as like leather bound hardback books with like gilded foil. And I would drop a ton of money for fancy Christopher Pike books. Who's listening to this that can make this happen?
Who's
No
giving
one.
you $1?
Yeah. No one. It's a shame. Christopher Pike. I'm sure that's not your real name because it's from Star Trek. Are you out there? All right. Well, I think it's time to bring this to a close. We're going to go spend your money now
To say, yeah. I think that's all we
on
have
stickers and cheesies.
to say.
Sounds great.
All
All
right.
right.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Thanks for your money.
Thanks for your money and try to solve Alonzo's murder from your couch.
Please do.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.